Welcome to the Growers Mineral Podcast. This episode features audio from our February conference call held on February 13th, 2025. Each month, we host a live discussion on Zoom, bringing together farmers, agronomists, and industry experts to share insights on soil health, crop nutrition, and sustainable farming practices. For more information about Growers Mineral or to join our next call, visit growersmineral.com. And now, enjoy the discussion.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the February Growers Mineral Conference call. Should have a good conversation tonight. I know, Jim, I see you on. I know we've got Matt Schroeder. You're going to cover a couple things, and then we're going to get to Matt Gooding, who has a slide to go over, and Zach Holmer as well. So, Jim, are you ready to get going?
Yeah, I'm ready. If you got me, Russ.
Yep, we got you.
Yeah, okay, very good. Hey, Matt Schroeder, Russ said you wanted to get away from the post early. So usually, my name is Jim Halbeisen. I've been running the conference call here lately. And what I do is kind of cover current events early for upgrades for our salesmen and our customers also. But we reflect on the calendar picture. And the calendar picture for the month of February kind of shows a few problems that the company had with some of our physical possessions. And I've asked Matt to kind of discuss that a little bit. We had another fairly interesting issue last summer down around Cincinnati. And then I was going to let in the late fall edition of the solution, Matt and Jim Ward did a real nice job of talking about procuring, ingredients, to make the grower's product and how that's being affected. And now with the new president and talking about tariffs, we are getting a lot of DAP out of North America. And that has possibilities of affecting us. So, Matt, if you're in a position that you want to chat a little bit, I'm going to let you go at it. I'd like you to start and talk a little bit about the truck picture and then kind of expand on trucking and what other issues we've had with that.
Sure. Hello, everyone. Thanks, Jim. And this is Matt Schroeder. No, that picture that was in the calendar was just it was a backup truck that is in New York State, and a tree fell on it. And there's always challenges in trucking for every reason under the sun. Anywhere from just trees falling and breakdowns and parts availability, driver availability, and of course the big problem that we've had several times, and that's accidents. And fortunately, no one was injured, and secondarily, these accidents weren't our fault. However, those cause lots of problems. We've had an accident down in Cincinnati that it was a driver that was a hit and run, and it was an Amazon tractor trailer that caused the accident and took off on us. Fortunately, we have forward-facing cameras that in our Milan trucks that help prevent some issues, of course, and we did the best we could to recover from that accident insurance-wise, because we did have the evidence that the driver ran off on us. But there's always lots and lots of trucking issues, and that always keeps us busy, and which kind of rolls into the procurement thing of, raw materials. And, we of course are buying lots and lots of raw materials, and that trucking has a huge impact on that as well. the one thing that we do is it's a big process and a very, to be honest, a very difficult process, and keeps us up at night, is trying to produce or trying to procure raw materials. And that starts in August. And, Jim Ward and myself and Osa, we basically what we do is we send out a RFQ, which means request for quotation. All that is saying, okay, we want to buy these particular raw materials. We list an approximate amount that we want to buy, and that's an estimate based upon what we think we're going to need for the following year. And and we give the vendors a couple weeks to come up with their quotations. And what we ask for is a full year of a price for a full year. And we did that this year, and we do that on most years, not all years, but we had anticipated that the price would be at its lowest right now, or right then, I should say, back in August. So we were gambling, of course, based upon what we knew at that time, that we felt that the prices were going to be the best at that point. So we wanted to lock in prices, and we sent out those quotes. We got them back. We picked the top ones. We asked those top three basically to come and visit us, talk with us, and see if they can sharpen their pencils a bit more. Because one, let's face it, commodities for corn, wheat, soybeans have been very, very low. And so we explained that situation, that look, we can't absorb any price increases. Our customers are struggling because of those low commodity prices. And of course, they've got high input prices on the other side. So we basically say, look, we need the best price possible. You got to help us out and do better. Farming is, certainly not a high margin business, and we explain that we need better prices out of you guys. So that's what we did. As a result of lots of negotiation, and kind of beating them down, so to speak, we were able to secure a price of 1.5% decrease for this season. And at the same time, though, we always are cognizant of, we need the best quality raw materials. That comes at a price. The example, the materials that we use are food/tech grade materials, which really, for example, the DAP, there's no really difference in the material of food grade or tech grade DAP. The only difference is packaging. Okay, so some of our DAP comes in as food grade, quote unquote. Some of it's tech grade, but it's the same material. It's just packaged a little differently. Now, we test all of our raw materials, and we only use raw materials that have passed the very strict tests that we use. In other words, we use neutron activation testing, and we are looking for heavy metals in particular. And I can say that our materials are as low in heavy metals as possible. We have tested some other raw materials, some other fertilizers, I should say, that are, one of them was listed as an organic fertilizer, and that tested through the roof on heavy metals. It was extremely high in heavy metals. So that just goes back to the point of growers is, extremely good material. It's as low as possible for heavy metals. We have a great product, and that's our number one goal is get great raw materials at the best price possible, and we pass that on to our customers. So current climate, we go back to the example of DAP. Our DAP is only available in 3 countries. It's available in Russia, China, and Mexico. It's all import material. We can't get it in the States. It's not possible. It's not even available in the States. So almost all of our DAP is coming from Mexico. So we are definitely keeping abreast of the situation of current political situations. We're monitoring that, and we're certainly doing the best we can, and we don't anticipate any supply problems for the rest of this season. We see everything is going along okay, and that's what I've got. So
hey, Matt, will
yes,
will you comment just a little bit on deliveries? I'm talking to guys that are trying to figure out, how to market their grain, and they're dragging their feet, and I understand that completely. But when you're a smaller company like we are, guys, if you can do anything, to help us with that order a little bit quicker, so that we've got a little bit of headway or leeway with deliveries, that could be a problem this season.
Yeah, the biggest thing, of course, is trucking. I mean, we are trying to get material delivered as quickly as possible. But that last minute orders are at risk of being delivered on time, and so anything that you can do to get those orders out to us as soon as possible is going to allow us to make those deliveries. We've got another seasonal driver that's starting this week, just because we absolutely want to make sure that we deliver our customers' product on time. It's no good unless it's in their hands. So anything you can do to expedite those orders to us will be definitely appreciated, so that we can ensure delivery on time.
Very good, Matt. Hey, I appreciate it. Fine job.
Thank you, guys.
Another thing, gentlemen, is Matt Gooding's going to talk a little bit about his discussion with his customers with this dry weather that appears to be occurring, in our sales area, which is a fair share of the Corn Belt. And, that when you do foliar feeding, that's something nobody else is doing. So that lengthens our delivery time out a little bit. That's helpful to us. So that's one thing to keep in mind, is get that planting stuff locked down so that you can just let her rip when it's time. And then if you're not ready to release your grain, kind of plan your foliar feeding, in a June time frame, so that stretches it out a little bit. And that gives us a little bit of breathing room also. Matt will talk about that a little bit later. I think that's something, some of the data that I'm looking at, over the mainstream agricultural network is leading to that. And then we're picking up stuff from some of the other non-agricultural data. And that's what we try to do in the first part of the call, to talk about, current events. And really, the biggest current event is the WASNI report. We just had one here on Tuesday. And again, kind of interesting. You go back to the January 10th one, that really got this corn market started, and it drug beans with it for a while. We had a little bit of upsurge in wheat, but they backed that off right away. But this one here in February, they cut the carry, in the world basically on both corn and beans. And it kind of went negative at that point. They said that they didn't cut it enough. The one advisor I listened to, he claims the books are cooked. He said, when they look at South America, they basically said that their carry and their production was going to be down so many million bushels. Well, they just basically said they didn't have to ship that many million bushels. So they made it a wash. So it's kind of like fudging the books to keep the income or the price where it belongs. The thing that has been on the chatter is the hedge funds have just been buying corn contracts like crazy. And if you go back to 12 and 13 and 14, when we had the drought in Illinois, when they got to this volume, 350,000 contracts, that drug corn up pretty significantly and fairly quickly. And there's a Canadian advisor that said that this still has some possibilities. They've been ripping back on corn, but it just keeps edging its way back. When you look at the charts on that, we're in that transition zone right now. Now, whether that's going to happen or not, that's all up for speculation. But they had been, bad-mouthing corn, not near as bad as soybeans. But it just seems that they can't take the legs out from under it. Now it's a matter of us trying to figure out, where that top's going to be. The other day, they knocked it back 8 cents. And basically, by this evening, it's gaining all that back, basically. So, again, I think that's a big quiz where we're going with that corn market. And see, that affects us directly. Guys are, when they're planting corn, they're using growers, whether they're using it in furrow, 2x2, in combination, foliar feeding, all of that plays into this. The only other thing with the wheat market and, this deal with Trump saying that they're going to negotiate with, Putin and the guy from Ukraine, the experts are saying this should really knock the legs out from under wheat. But the advisor I'm listening to is saying wheat has been in the tank ever since this war started. And he's thinking that the Russians are basically selling it, at a low price to fund their war machines. So if they stop the war, they'll kind of hold back on that wheat. That could give us a little bit of fire. Now, the other thing is this polar vortex, and it's coming down in Russia as well as it's coming down here into the middle of the country next week. And see, the lack of snow cover is basically concerning some people. In Russia, particularly, they're saying it was very, very dry when this stuff was planted, so that it doesn't have near the top growth to it, that the wheat could struggle and could get injured with the cold temperatures we're looking at. That's going to be. Scott MacGyver just sent me some numbers. James is going up there next week. He said James probably will never come back after he sees some of this 25 below stuff. But that's mirrored over in Russia. So they're saying that could cause some damage over there. The dry weather. See, this is one reason I wanted Matt to kind of talk this evening about his guys, what he's going to talk to them about dry weather, because there's a lot of indicators out there. And, the USDA has kind of poo-pooed that a little bit and said, we've shrunk those areas up. But off of the Google search, a Yahoo article I found very interesting. And it said, residents sound the alarm as drought threatens water supply for the third year in a row. Now, where this is at the mouth of the Mississippi. It's a couple parishes in Louisiana. And what's happened is the flow of the Mississippi has got low enough that the salt water is backing into the mouth of the Mississippi. And a couple of these parishes, the people just had to stop drinking the water because the salt load was so high. Plus, it's hard on their plumbing. Doesn't work well in your washer. So, but what some of these environmentalists are saying, or the conservation NRCS guys are saying, is that the non-absorbability of the soil, when we get these heavier rains in the past, the soil was able to absorb some of this water and then uniformly distribute it into the river through tile and then natural subsurface flow of the water. When they have this hard soil, the water is running off, the river is escalating quickly, but then falls quickly. And so they don't have enough back pressure to keep that salt water out of there. And they're saying, just the change in the diffusivity or the infiltration into the soil is a big problem, but the volume of water is not where it should be either to keep that salt water back. So again, we've seen this affect the cattle market, definitely with grazing, in Texas, and then wheat growth in Kansas, Oklahoma, all the way up through the Mississippi Valley. So again, it looks like that if we don't get a very big influx, and they're saying the El Nino La Nina situation won't add to that this spring, that basically we could be looking at a dry year. And see, that's what I want Matt to talk about. Back in the 88 drought, we put out a couple pamphlets talking about foliar feeding. We think that's a big issue when you're planting. Guys that have gone to putting it in furrow and 2x2ing it at the same time. Matt will chat a little bit about that multi-position thing. And we've got guys that are very happy with that. We think that affecting that larger area of soil or biological population with the product, we think will be very helpful if we get into drier conditions as we go through the season. The other thing is just the price of fertilizer itself. I look at the DTN retail fertilizer trend every week. It's creeping, and it's been creeping. Potassium has started to creep more significantly, but really it's not the leader. Nitrogen is the leader now. And it doesn't make any difference, really. Anhydrous is not part of the program. Urea 28, 32, they have started to creep up pretty significantly according to DTN. And see, this just mirrors the temperature in Europe, mirrors the temperature here in the U.S. The demand for natural gas is the biggest thing that pushes the price of, nitrogen fertilizer. So again, this is something, as guys have decided that, they're going to kind of let these markets run a little bit. That's something you have to keep an eye on, guys. And we noticed that in our urea purchases that it's been creeping on us. So again, that's affected both 28, 32 and urea. The other thing is just the cattle market. It's kind of interesting. They hammered away at it. They had that report a week ago tomorrow, and basically is showing that there's no buildup in the herd. Some of these independent advisors are just saying, that one gentleman, that Bryce Nord, he's been at it quite a while. He said, looking at the numbers from the report, he said there's 2.5 years worth of price in these cattle. And, the hedge fund boys have tried to manipulate that. They hammered away at it, but it's been creeping back. But when you, and some of the advisors from the institutions are saying, oh yeah, the buildup is happening. That's not what the guys with the boots on the ground are saying. That young woman from DTN is basically saying, no, she disagrees with that. She's a cattle person, grew up with cattle. She does a real nice job with her articles, discussing, what she's seeing, talking to guys, looking at the market itself, the meat market. how fresh meat, particularly hamburgers, just flying off the shelves, even at the prices they've got, because people have just stopped going to the restaurants, with sizable families. They're trying to eat at home, trying to, control some of these costs. And see, the other issue is this bird flu and how it's affecting the dairy industry. There was a report on DTN this evening saying that they think they've got all the bird flu out of the dairy cows in the state of Pennsylvania. And see, what that is doing is affecting, the beef on dairy thing. Some of these cows are going into breeding, sick basically. And so I'm sure the breeding is not as good. The calf is not as healthy. Hopefully in April, Mike Bolsher will be able to comment a little bit more. His son put up one of these calf barns, and they're getting educated on that. And he's been talking to our sales call about that. It's been kind of interesting, and we'd like to get him on and talk to our customer base too at the Thursday night call. But that bird flu in the dairy market, or in the dairy cows, it's definitely hurt. California's been hurt the worst, but they're finding it everywhere, and that has had an effect, on the cows, on the production as far as beef on dairy is concerned. And actually, on the mainstream medias tonight, this bird flu is a big lead, because they found more people that have been infected by it. And actually, they're saying there's veterinarians in California that they just thought they had the flu, but when they tested them, they did have they had the bird flu basically. So it has morphed into the human chain, and there's been several articles on Google where MDs are talking about there's significant flu outbreaks in schools around the country. We had one here, a district just west of us, where they shut down for a couple of days because they had a lot of sick teachers, had a lot of sick kids. And they're saying that this bird flu is contributing to the other types of flu that are infecting people. It's just lowering immune systems. And right now, again, talking about Mike Bolsher, he's down at Louisville, but where Mike lives, Darke County, Mercer County in southwestern Ohio, that's a hotbed in Ohio, man. They've killed a tremendous number of birds down there. And Mike really alerted me to that, telling me that some of the operations that are close to him, man, they're hauling them out of there like cordwood. And it's basically, and we've talked a little bit in the past on the sales call about the insurance that these companies have to cover that loss, and the indemnity on that, man. They're making some real money. And the government is getting a little tight about that and trying to force more biosecurity onto these operations. Well, that's kind of interesting. One of the articles on AgWeb, an outfit on down by New York City on the island down there, they got a lot of ducks. And John Sensenik, our rep in New York, says that is true. These guys had to kill 90% of what they had in a couple of their farms. And he's saying, the government's saying, well, you're not going to get these payments unless you implement biosecurity. And he says, I'm so sick of that word, I can't even express how I feel about it. He said, we've gone through that whole mess. And he said, it's wild birds. And he's saying the best effect he's getting is using laser interceptors on the ends of his buildings to try to keep those wild birds out of there. So, again, that's, everybody's screaming about the price of eggs. I mean, that's the lead story on some of these mainstream medias. Even the conservative medias are talking about it also being an issue. And so that's spilling over into the cattle market too, or particularly with dairy. And, some of those dairymen are saying that's that's become an issue in some areas of the country. And so, like I said, when they made this statement that they had gotten it out of Pennsylvania, I know it's been found in Ohio, it's been found in Michigan, so it's been an issue overall for the cattle business. One thing we want to bring up again, and we brought it up the last conference call, is the American Relief Act. I had a call from one of our district managers that he mentioned it to a gentleman whose wife worked at FSA, and she said they have not heard anything about this particular money that supposedly is coming. And what you're seeing on AgWeb and DTN, they're talking about the 20th of March on the release date on this, and we're just telling guys, to try to talk to people that might be knowledgeable about this. Well, this gentleman's wife was a little PO'd about that because she didn't know anything, being from FSA. But my experience with 50 years working with FSA on crop reporting, they're usually the last ones to know. So again, it's a matter of what your connections are. But the numbers that they're throwing around is pretty much what they originally came out with. And the one article I looked at, they're talking about $44 on corn per acre, 87 on cotton, 33 on beans, 31 on wheat, 42 on sorghum, 80 on oats, 76.30 on peanuts, $70 on rice, and $20 on barley. So again, and again, I'm under the impression from what I read, if you're reporting your acres, you're on the ledger to receive this money. And like I said, the last things I have read, they're talking the 20th. The Southern politicians are the ones that are pushing the hardest on this. Because again, their guys got to get started, so that's trying to push that to get it into the hands of the farmers, so they basically can get their products bought and get things done. The advisor I listened to, that Vaklovic, is saying, that he did a survey with his clientele, and many of the farmers are just saying, hey, just pay us a decent price and forget the subsidy stuff. And he said the banks, the bankers are the ones that are really ringing the chime on this thing because some of these operating loans they're struggling with them. And the auditors, Joe Henry talked about that a lot, that the auditors from the world banks were basically saying they didn't want to work with agriculture anymore because it's just too risky for them. So again, you got your hometown banks that are still, invested in their farmers and working with them. So there's a couple other things I need to talk about. I need to shut up so we can get Zach Holmer on here and let him talk. Zachy, he's headed to Louisville. We've got guys down there working the show. Zach's heading down there. There's one other thing I picked up on it came off of DTN, but it basically originated from a non-agricultural mainstream media thing. And the title of this publication or this paper is Midwest Could Soon Face Power Shortfalls. And see, this thing with Trump pushing this AI thing, and I just don't know anything about it. Probably you guys know a whole lot more about it than I do. But the demand for power from this AI is supposedly huge. And what this article is saying, probably the biggest deficit area is right down the Mississippi Valley, man. It kind of creeps over into Tennessee and a little bit of southern Kentucky, but it heads up directly into the Dakotas, Minnesota, Wisconsin, down into Louisiana, a little bit of eastern Kansas, eastern Oklahoma. And then they call that a high risk shortfall area for power here in the near future. And they're saying that'll get started here as soon as they start getting some of these AI facilities completed, which I think they're talking the end of 25 on some of this. And then they got an elevated risk area, and that's most of the area. That includes New York, Ontario, all the way over to Maine, and then you jump the river. That'd be Western Iowa, Western South Dakota, North Dakota, Western Kansas, a good share in Nebraska. And then the moderate risk basically includes us, where the plant is at in Ohio, and that streams down into the Carolinas, and then Daniel Weaver's territory, Georgia, Mississippi, Alabama. Looks like they're pretty well covered. And see, they've got acronyms on here that they don't discuss in the article, like where the problem is at. They have one called, the acronym is MISO. I don't know if that means anything to you guys. The southern area is SERC. Our area, well, that's central. Then they got SERC east and southeast, but that's all in the blue zone. And then NPCC is where New England is covered, and that's in the elevated risk. And then for us, Kentucky, northern Kentucky, Ohio, Pennsylvania, PJM is the acronym there. So I just thought maybe you guys would find that interesting. This AI has really driven the market, stock market particularly. It's driving these hedge funds. And whether it's going to have a problem, causes a problem with energy, it's just something we got to pay a little bit of attention to. So last Saturday night, I'm reclining watching basketball, and somebody hits me with a text. And I'm thinking, this was a later ball game. What the heck is this? So it's Zach Holmer. And he shipped me a text, which was from Ag Talk. And a lot of you guys know what Ag Talk is. I don't look at it all the time. I know Zachy probably does. But starting the end of January into early February, there was a very big link on green lightning. And the discussion, and the one Zach wanted me to look at was the very most recent one that the guy put out. And this guy went at green lightning from the power side of the equation. And he had a lot of statistics there, and basically was saying that he didn't think it was possible to generate the type of nitrogen that farmers are thinking is there. And then it was very interesting to go through the whole thing and look at the whole thread and look at every comment. And what I found interesting, guys, was that there were guys that just badmouthed it totally, said there's no way you can compare it to 3228. There can't be enough nitrogen in there. But there were a lot of guys in there that talked about the energy factor, and that they think that it's not all pounds of nitrogen that is getting the job done. And I'd say the percentage of that was pretty good, much better than what I thought it would be for guys that would jump on a thread like that. So Zach, if you're available, chat away on what you think about that thread, and Zach's messed a little bit with the green lightning. Matt put some together for him and me, and I just want his opinion on that. And I will tell you, I don't know if it was the same night or if it was Sunday night, then I got another text. I was like, what the heck is this? And, well, it's Zach again. And he was sending me an article about green ammonia. See, green ammonia right now is the big deal, guys. Your last solution, I wrote that article, The War on Nitrogen, and see the environmentalists are after it because of the CO2 emission making anhydrous, and then making the power to make the anhydrous. So they're trying to come up with ways that they say they're not using that amount of natural gas to evolve CO2 in the atmosphere, but it's a ruse, guys, in my opinion. So Zach, he's keeping me pretty well informed on this thing. So Zach, why don't you don't get in a wreck, but just give us some of your opinion on this thing that you read on that thread.
All right. The lucky part about what I get to do is I get to deliver growers to a lot of our customers. And it's interesting to pull in on some of their farms and find that they've got a Green Lightning machine sitting there running somewhere. And I can throw a comment out and question on them. And, well, guess what? It's a half hour later till I get to leave their place, at least. Following Ag Talk and some other things, obviously everybody's looking to find cheaper ways to increase their return on investment as we're trying to farm and make a living. Especially the organic guys are looking for nitrogen specifically, and this whole Green Lightning thing, that availability to make it on your own farm, obviously has everybody really intrigued. What I do want to say is I'm not here to bash the machine or the company or their marketing, but hopefully we can wake you guys up a little bit to be able to read between the lines and be able to understand what's going on a little better. And certainly not saying that I have it figured out either. Basically, you don't hear a lot of great news about it in the farm community in the online forums that I have followed and seen. There's been a few people that have gotten on, and those people, one guy got on, he had never used it. He bought 2 machines, and the first thing he did is went to the classified section and says, hey, I got 2 machines, and I'll sell you the material for 80 cents a gallon. And, you know, their data says it's worth 3 pounds of N per gallon. And, well, some of us immediately go after that going, wait a minute, whoa. And this person volunteered to send off water samples because he was so confident that he had the perfect water for the machine, and said he would report back later on his findings of how much nitrogen was there. And, well, when he come back, he just basically wouldn't give anybody any numbers, but said, well, you know, it's this or it's that and yada, yada, and da-da-da, and kind of beat around the bush and wouldn't say anything, but admitted that there wasn't much found in that particular samples that he sent. What I can tell you from my experience is there is something to the process and running it. Matt Gooding has been running the machine that he's got since June 2nd of 2023. And while he tinkers around trying to make a different product and make it better and try to figure things out, there were many times that he would tell me that what I had in one of my tanks was different, and I could back him up and say, well, yes, I could feel that there would be a texture difference. It certainly didn't burn your hands like conventional 28 would, but you could feel the stickiness aspect or whatever a little different. And like the 28% applicator I use to side dress corn, it is ground driven. Well, it's a positive displacement pump, and I wouldn't change any settings there, but the pressure of what that pump was pushing through the orifices going out to each knife, that pressure would change when I would change to different ones. So we know there's something going through the machine, but when it comes to actually trying to put a mathematical figure on what's happening, we can't really do that. When you look at a lot of the data that the Green Lightning people have put out there, and even to some degree, I've got some friends in the seed industry. couple of them got a hold of me, said, "Hey, I just bought 2 machines. I'm not buying any nitrogen next spring because, all their data shows I don't need any. I can just use this." And as soon as I say, "Well, yeah, that might sound real good and great, but you better be prepared to be making rescue attempts with commercial nitrogen," that gets a pretty good kickback from those guys all of a sudden, and they're not so happy with that. But when you look at all the data that I have been able to find from the company and from what other people have supplied me with, when you look at how they are advertising it, they are advertising Green Lightning as a nitrogen equivalent. So what they're doing is they're not telling you, and neither are the other farmers that have at least communicated some with me, they're not telling you what their base fertility program is. So for me, in my case, it is just 9 gallon of growers a year and 34 gallon of 28%. That is my full fertility for a corn crop. And yes, I can get my average 150 bushel corn as long as the weather's there. But when the weather's right, I can run 2 1/4 plus. I've done it in test plots. So I'm not blaming fertility on yields. But when you look at these other guys and you start questioning them, they say, "Well, we just use whatever standard program it was." But they're not telling us how much other N they're putting on, or DAP or MAP or anything else. So, but what they're doing is just removing some of their 28 in their post or side dress application, and they're replacing it with Green Lightning, and they're either getting a similar yield to what they were doing, or in some instances, a little more yield. I've had a couple people privately give me what they were doing, and they say, "Well, I cut out 30 gallon of 28 and I put in 30 or 60 or 100 gallon of Green Lightning, and I got the same yield, or I got 10 bushel more." But when I stopped and figured out how much actual N they're applying commercially in their program, they're applying in that 0.5 to 0.7 pounds a bushel of commercial N before you even figured in the Green Lightning. Well, I'm in that same boat very often with mine. I generally shoot for about 0.75 if I'm just guessing for my yield. So you get to start to thinking and you're going, okay, so is this result that those guys are getting by adding the Green Lightning and replacing some of that 28, are they actually getting a response because there's some nitrogen working there? Or are they getting a response because of the lesser amounts of 28 and the salt load that comes with that being put to their biology in the soil? And if you want to open up a real can of worms with those guys, that one will do it right there. That'll cause smoke to start rolling out of their ears. So as far as greenhouse gas emissions goes, I'm sure that doesn't help very much. But I've been asked by a couple people, are you going to return the machine? Because the company has if you don't like the machine in a certain amount of time, they'll take it back from you and give you your money back. And I don't own the machine, but even if I did, I would still be interested in trying it for at least another year, because I do think something's there. I think there is something there for us to figure out in how that particular material reacts with the plants and reacts with the soil. Because I've sprayed it foliar. It doesn't burn anything. You get it on your hands. It doesn't burn your hands. But I didn't get the yield response I needed when, in my case, I took all 34 gallons of 28 out and I replaced it with just straight Green Lightning. And I did not get the yield response that I was hoping for. But I also know that I went through a severe drought this year, especially in my area where I farm. Even the neighbors said the same thing. Got a text message from the one neighbor who they butt right up against mine. He texted me and he said, yep. He said, it's crazy that the yields here, he goes, we can't find triple digits. So, I mean, that's how dry it was right through there. So does having a higher amount of calcium in the soil, like I've been trying to add the last few years, and how does all that biology react with that particular product? Is there something there to it? I really hope so, but I'm certainly optimistic enough to give it another try. But I'll put it this way, the nitrogen's ordered. So.
Hey, Zach, fine job. I really appreciate it.
Yep, you're welcome.
Matt Gooding, we're ready, and I've asked Matt. He's always got free range to do whatever he wants to chat about. But what I really wanted him to do was to chat about what he's going to tell his customers if it turns bone dry, because I think this is a possibility for guys all through the system, and I definitely want to get Matt's expertise. He went through 88, and so what he thinks will be helpful to guys. So again, that's kind of what Matt's going to be doing for you guys. So take her away, Matt.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. Hey, good job, Zach. We'll keep trying. This whole green lightning thing, we still haven't had a fair shake. We never got the material where I think it has a possibility, really till too late to really do anything. And then we were as dry as Zach here. Zach and Jim, Zach farms 13 miles away. Jim farms 17 miles away. Zach actually had more water than I did. So we are in a situation where right now, for the first time in 55 years on this farm, we got nothing off of our fall pastures. They were so dry. And since the cattle came in off of them pastures from the winter, for the winter, we've got 1.2 inches. So we have nothing really to work with this year at all. And, there's other areas within my customer base that have it. Others had the most perfect year ever again. But the reality of it is we have some issues happening with our son. Been doing a lot of space science investigations for the past probably half dozen years, increasingly so. And the reality of it is, if you really dig around and look at what's going on worldwide with weather and the farming community, it is pathetic, and it is violent, and it is extreme. And it comes in cycles. There's all sorts of things. We could do a whole Zoom meeting on it. I'm putting together different things constantly about it when somebody wants to know. But the reality of it is weather extremes are here, and they're going to be here for at least another, it looks like almost 2 years, and they're going to accelerate. So, the whole aspect of, dry and then intense rain and this flipping around. Well, we can't do anything about the weather, right? I mean, it's all controlled by the sun. And some people would say some nefarious activities of humans. And I would probably go on the combinational route on that one. But the reality of it is we can't do anything about the sun. It's more intense. What's happening is in these natural solar cycles, we get dry air. And one of the things I monitor is humidistat outdoors. A lot of us like to look at temperatures and rainfall, but I watch humidity, because I'm going to tell you right now, it is as bad as it's ever been at night. We just don't get the dews. Daytime humidities, sometimes we see 16, 17%. I mean, it's crazy. And the load that's putting on the top 2 inches of our soils are off the charts bad. In fact, we're going to develop some tests this year with the soil biometer. I had some initial conversations with Jim, and we're going to run soil biometer tests weekly. I think 2 or 3 different spots. We got to develop some sort of equipment to do it how I want to do it, in some sort of grid pattern, much like we did the soil tests aspects, where we took a soil test every week and from a active hayfield and got our eyes open big time. And we'll see what happens with biology, because my contention is that top 2 inches of soil is as biologically it's dead as it's been, in since it has been turned over first by the moldboard plow, and that's virtually in all areas of the country and Canada, as far as I'm concerned. Now, and it's going to get assaulted by this weather. We're getting a ton more UVC, and UVC on the whole scale of magnetic light intensity. It's one step away from X-rays. We all know how good those are to hang around in them. But the reality of it is there's things happening here that environmentally that aren't right. And what do? Well, a number of years ago, I started advocating that we need to put growers in numerous spots. So I want to start there because I'm going to push every one of my customers. The next newsletter that we produce, we'll probably yank some of the articles and put it in the main newsletter, growers, if Jim wants to. We're going to talk about why we want to place this stuff in 3 places. And I can only overview in my time left here, but the reality of it is those of you who have on a computer, you're seeing a chart right now that says foundational characteristics. For those of you who have a phone, let me describe what they're looking at. It's basically when I first started messing in the lab, when growers said, hey, we'll fund you lab stuff, Matt, and have at it. And, they give me free range to develop stuff. And one of the things, my drive has always been doing this all my life. I know the utter hell the people paid that started this, from Doc Tejan's to Jim Halbeisen's dad to my dad, and all the crap they put up with people saying this and that and everything about this whole mindset and program and product doesn't work. So, I had a little chip on my shoulder listening to my dad getting run down all the time in the neighborhood and stuff. And so, I craft virtually everything I do in a way that, the biology tells us, the plants, the soil science, the chemistry, and we come up with unique ways of showing things that, that was a bunch of crap, you guys. And there's been times when I've been tears in the lab thinking about all the crap people put up with this. And here it is. They would love to have this data in from it. One of them is what's on this screen right now is basically we took all these different fertilizers, just dozens of them. You know what? We dried them. We froze them. We tried to rehydrate them. We found out what their salt index is at 1 part fertilizer to 500 parts pure water. Okay. And I'm going to tell you what, you want some eyes opened on that. It's crazy. Well, the reality of it is growers is just the best of the bunch. We just never found anything that would resolubilize completely after being dried or frozen. Had a lowest salt index despite having the highest weight per gallon. And so what we got here is with this sun and with this dry air and with us abusing our soils and with pounding on our organic matter and with us trying to put all these high salt chicken manures and fertilizers on, we have to think about how to take care of this biology. Well, growers, this is one of the first things I did is we developed different drying techniques, which is kind of interesting. Dry 1034O. Try to dry it down to a powder. Good luck. You got to know it isn't as easy as it appears. This stuff's a poly, it's a paste, and it's a pain in the butt to get to do. But, we figured out how to do it all. And you know what? This chart shows, if those of you who have a computer, there's a red circle. I impregnated that on there. And basically, it's a total dissolved solids, which we talk about TDSs and water and stuff. And hopefully you're familiar with that. If not, for those of you who are customers, ask your growers dealer what TDS is and get educated on water because it's a really big deal. But due to time restraints, we won't go there. But the reality of it is growers, for its weight, for its amount of nutrition, for its availability, has the lowest TDS at 500 to 1 than anything. This chart shows 539 TDS on growers at 500 to 1. 500 parts pure water, 1 part growers. You know what the difference is with 1034O? It's over 10 times more. 5,504 is what I got. This stuff is incredibly salty. More and more, I see more cornfields around here where the 1034O is used. People are putting 28 beside their row, 2 by 2. Some of them are putting it on their row, and then their corn looks like crap, during a drought period or when it's dry. And it only needs to be dry briefly. It's the salt load from past fertilizers, the manures, and just plain facts of the sun being that air humidity is so dry, draw these salts to the surface, and it's burning off the roots. I put them under a microscope, There's a guy, embarrassing a guy. It's my own brother-in-law, just won't. He uses growers everywhere else, but he won't put it on his in corn. He still uses 1034. Whoa. He made a comment to me that, you know what, my corn looked like crap. It had potassium deficiency. So he was going to spend a bunch of money to fix that. Like, oh my gosh, you use 1034. The roots are all burnt off on the side from the TDSs that came up to the soil and burn them off because you know what? Weather-wise, I'm paying attention to the weather. The last 2 weeks have been super dry and the humidities at night, they don't get above 60%. A lot of times I've seen 42% for overnight lows in the month of June. That's crazy. And so what's happening is we have all these issues. Now, what are we going to do? I wanted to put growers in more different places because this was coming on more and more all the time. We were doing different soil tests where we would actually take TDSs and see these salts moving up. I mean, these big vegetable operations I have in muck soils, they were getting creamed by dry fertilizer residues from, it's probably applied 40 years ago in excess because, if you take off one crop, they do 2 crops a year, you take off one crop, well, that removes so much, you still got to put it on. And they're taking soil samples in November, after those salts have kind of retreated back down in the soil. Well, these topsoils were just unbelievably high in TDSs. So this is what we want to do is try to place even growers. Even though growers has one of the lowest salt indexes out there, we still want to spread it out. And so putting it in the row or 2 by 2, or even some of my guys are putting it in all 3 places. And all they're doing is just adding a little bit of water, make everything work. Usually about half. That's what Zach does. And Zach did data on that. And it's amazing. We'll pull that out for you if you want to see it again, because what Zach did that year was spectacular in terms of validation of this whole theory. And so, one of the things that I will be telling my customers right along in the newsletters I produce is we want you to do this because this salt load and this humidity, even growers too much in a row with manures and other fertilizers, and especially newer guys that aren't on the program, they don't have the biology in that 2 inches, let alone the next 2, 4, 6 inches. We need to get this stuff spread out. The biology loves growers. It sets a chain of reactions off that, we've got guys supporting some spectacular yields and are very happy with growers being their main base fertilizer that they put on, outside of the 28% and tweaking it here and there based on sandy soils. That's pretty much the how we handle it. And muck soils, we'll do some different things if we think we have to, but we really got to avoid the salt index stuff. Well, that same thing really happens with foliage feeding. The same salt index stuff you see here. I just walked in before the Zoom call, going to try to come up with different experiments. I did the first one tonight. Oh my goodness. One of the things with trying to figure out different experiments to prove a point is you got to go through a teething stage where you go out and screw around and screw up. And then sometimes, like tonight, got this big elaborate setup, wires running everywhere, batteries, switches, and it's kind of a little electrical aspect I'm doing to the substances. And you know what? I got some responses I don't even know. They mean, I can see what they mean, but I also know that there's more there than what, it's like, what can of worms got opened again, and somebody like a Zach Holmer and Jim Halbeisen is out there going, oh crap, now we got to listen to Matt some more on this. Well, yeah, possibly. I'll keep my mouth shut for a little while until I think I know direction. But the reality, here it is. When you foliage feed, everybody asks whether it's best to do it at night or in the morning. Well, I've always said morning, and for a number of reasons, the dew's there, the plant's somewhat open. I say now with this sun activity, since overlaying and understanding what's coming, what's happening to us now, weather-wise, space weather-wise, I'm talking about influencing, regular weather. Again, we're going to see things, we are seeing things around the world that has never been seen, almost in all of human agricultural life, at least mainline agricultural life for sure. And again, that intensity of that sun, that dryness, that air is changing things. And I've come to the conclusion more, and this is some of the experiments to try to pull this off is I really think we need to be foliage feeding at night into the evening, especially when we know the forecast is dry and dry air. I'm going to encourage all my customers, and I'd encourage every one of you out there to get on Amazon and get an indoor-outdoor temperature humidity reader. Like I got one on a windmill outside, and it sends stuff in here now. Like right now, I can see the humidity outside is 77%. Inside is 33%. We're drying up in here running humidifiers, but and those numbers flip in the summer. And again, I'm watching that number more. I do humidity forecasts on a weather line for my customers that do not have access to regular weather. Amish and Mennonites call. I have a weather line, run it for, gosh, I think it's 10 years now. And we do humidity forecasts. Okay. And the reason that is now more and more, in terms of them watering and doing different things with the specialty crop operations I have, among everything else, this foliage feeding is a really big deal. And I think it's going to be in the evening. And I think I'm going to be able to prove why that is. And some of the stuff I did tonight, is going to be able to add to that. So hopefully we can get that in the newsletters and distributed for summer. But the bottom line is, here's the thing about it. You need to use the best water. You need to understand water chemistry. If you don't, again, ask your representative. For those of you listening, maybe for the first time, we can explain water, probably better applicational aspects of water better than anybody else, I think. And we're going to be adding a lot more to it with tonight's experiments, that's for sure. But here's the thing: you have to understand. One of the reasons I say evening now, more so. Two reasons. One, in messing with the lab and in messing with some of the chemistry things that you see here on the screen that you guys are seeing this stuff, when you take diluted versions of these different fertilizers and you and put it in blotter paper. I do a lot of stuff in petri dishes and blotter paper in the lab, and we grow plants and we do all sorts of stuff. But I always notice that the pure water petri dish with blotter paper in, you could put the same amount of water in. You could have one drop of growers at a 500-to-1 ratio, okay, in another petri dish. And that petri dish always dries out last. Anytime it's pure water, it dries out first. Okay. So there's a water. We know growers draws biology. Biology likes it. Biology has lots of water in it. That's why we want it in 3 places. Let's draw biology to help the plants do. And we have data on that. I mean, we have different things about that through the years, and all this is becoming clear. It's all starting to fit together in a nice little puzzle. You got to understand that something like growers and that elemental aspect of it draws moisture from the air. It got put together in a call from one of my customers in November wanting to order growers. A Mennonite friend of mine, he's a Mennonite minister, been with us forever. Ornery guy, love him. He does corn, soybeans, cattle. He does 2 acres of potatoes. And this is the manifestation of this. And I'm going to work and try to elaborate on this, and we'll try to get more stuff on this to help foster conversation for comfort in doing it this way and why. He had 2 acres of potatoes. He always waters them from a creek. If he needs water, if it goes dry, they sell it in the roadside stand with an older guy. Kind of neat thing that they do. They have all sorts of markets for it. And it's kind of like a hobby thing to him, 2 acres. And this year, like us here in a small area, no water in the creek to water these potatoes and nothing. The potatoes are starting to wilt. They're starting to turn yellow. Now, I've grown potatoes all my life. Any of you guys do it, when that happens, things aren't good. Okay. So what do you do? Well, he's listening to all the stuff we talk about. And this is how our customers, I tell our customers, you're part of a family of knowledge here. You know what? And you contributed to it. And so, he's going to tell me, he said, hey, you know what? I'm going to tell you this story. And, I'm so glad he did, because here it goes. They were getting near, one of the varieties was kind of a, variety that was probably 6 weeks away and from harvest. Typically a lot of times they leave it in the ground a long time, but reality of it is it had more growth. I mean, all this stuff was just starting to size. They did one round with a single row in a short area of the field, and they got 9 5-gallon buckets loads of potatoes. Okay. and just to see what they looked like, see what their size was. And boy, you know what, they needed more size and no water and nothing in the forecast. I mean, he's probably listened to my weather line, and I tried to extend it out 10 days and there was no hope. So they decided to fill up a 500-gallon tank of their sprayer, and they decided to fill it up with water and put a little bit of growers in it. I don't have the data in front of me. It's either a half a gallon or a gallon. I got a chart made out on it. And what they do is, him and the older guy, they would take turns and they would just go out and they would foliage feed primarily at night. They would just go out and put it in first gear and drive. That's all they did, and how many gallons do you think it got on? Well, depends, sometimes, 30, sometimes 50 gallons, sometimes maybe more. We get tired and we would quit, or we only had a couple, a little bit of time, we go faster, all over the place. Well, when the sprayer was empty, we would go fill it, and sometimes the tractors sit out in the field with, half full of water. And so that's what they did for almost 6 weeks. And they hardly missed a night or a day. Sometimes on Sundays and stuff they would miss, but weather, situations or family situation, they didn't get it done. But after that 6 weeks of no rain, of a wilting yellow potato, went back and dug the row beside they had dug before, and they doubled their yield. They had 18 5-gallon buckets. Now, what's happened? Hey, did they color up? Yeah, they colored up. And you could tell when you missed. He would say, and he would say, on the drier nights, that was a bigger deal that would last better. You could see before they would wilt, and all this stuff. So what's happening? That growers in that water laying on that leaf, just like in my Petri dishes in that paper, drawed moisture from the air, even though the air wasn't as high in moisture as it should have been. And if it did happen to get a dew, it's going to draw it towards it. Because you know what? There's biology on that surface of the leaf too. And it doesn't need a high TDSs or burn index that so much of this stuff has. It needs a complete food for that. And you know what? It'll draw moisture. And that's some of the stuff I'm trying to develop to show how that all works. And so I'll leave it at that. I know we're running late. News at 11. We're going to try to come out with some more stuff. Maybe we'll have another conversation on this another month, or certainly maybe the last one in April. That'll be up to Jim. We'll see what we can do. But this is what I'm telling my customers and why. And you know what? It's bigger than any of us. It's all driven by the sun and these weather extremes and our poor top 2 inches of soil biology. And that's my, kind of research goal for the year, or how I say enlightening goal. I kind of have different goals, total new research, something off the wall. But also trying to give people confidence on how to react to what Mother Nature's going to do, because Mother Nature's going to do it, and we're living it. This is the worst drought. I'm 62 years old, worst drought I've ever seen in my entire life. And we lived through 88. And this fall was the worst ever, and it still is. We haven't replenished nothing. So I know what's coming. And so, I am driven on a personal basis too. And you know what? The rest of us, let's put our heads together and let's get through this. This is what we're all about. We have an awesome product, a mindset, and a good group of people. At any of my meetings, I'm going to basically present everything I have here. And you know what? Somebody's going to say something that's going to help, push this whole thing down the road of what to do and how to do it based on what Mother Nature throws at us. So there you go, Jim.
Very good, Matthew. Appreciate it. So, Russ, I'll turn her back to you where you ran over. Sorry about that, guys. I hope you didn't miss too much beauty sleep.
No, I appreciate Jim and Matt and Matt Schroeder and Zach Holmer and everyone for tuning in tonight. We had a good tune in tonight. We had about 60 or so people, so definitely well attended. We will be having this up tomorrow or next week for anyone who maybe missed the first half of this and wants to go back and listen again, or wants to share with anyone. So we'll have it up on our podcast, the Growers Mineral Podcast. And with that, we will talk to you guys next time. The next meeting will be March 13th. So 1 month from now. Have a good night, everyone. Take care. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Growers Mineral Podcast. Our next conference call is on March 13th at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Follow us on Facebook at Growers Mineral for updates. To submit questions for the show, email contact us at growersmineral.com.